fogapparel.com. Fraternity of Girth. These new bags are they're just the best. I was going to go a lot more intense, but then I had a feeling of levity, a feeling of joy when I look at my bag, when I look at the stuff that I get to enjoy because of Fraternity of Girth. The Recon Pack, the Snack Smuggler, I said it right that time, the Fog Fanny, these are all fantastic day packs. These are for carrying your junk around. These are for carrying your stuff. I know that you're all out there in the heavy light sphere. You're not the most organized people. You're listening to me. I know that you're kind of a mess on some fronts, okay? This will keep you from being as much of a mess as you are. In addition, the Level Up collection is still available right now. So go to Fraternity of Girth's website, fogapparel.com. Use code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You save 10% on all that good stuff. So I was going back through my old YouTube videos, like old, looking for something relevant to this episode. And I stumbled across this video I made for my buddies. It's been unlisted forever. I'll let you guys enjoy.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night, and I feel alright. The party's here on the west side, so I reach for my 40 and I turn it up. Designated driver, take the keys to my trunk.
If you have a YouTube channel, I highly recommend just go back and dig for stuff you did like 10 years ago. Cringeworthy, most of it.
And it feels so good
In my hood. But some of it will be golden. It'll be pretty damn good right here. And the video is just a bunch of random pictures I threw together because I'm zany.
We're
gonna hang out to the chorus and then we'll move on with the actual bit.
So tip up your cup.
How do you guys like hearing my voice in stereo?
And let me hear the party say, I'm kind of buzzed and it's all because South Central does it like nobody does. This is how we do it. To all my
I didn't have backup singers at the time, so I'll just supply it myself. So there you go. That's what happens. That's the kind of stuff that's hidden and unlisted on my YouTube channel that you guys... Just these hidden treasures you guys are never going to get to appreciate. The things that I do for just my friends. I'm sure they really, really appreciate it. One of those guys doesn't even talk to me anymore. I don't know. Maybe it's because of that. I mean, if there's a reason to not be in touch with somebody anymore, to fall out of somebody's life, that's probably a great reason to do it. All right, so what I wanted to... I generally take a lot of my inspiration for podcast topics from just what I end up getting questions from people about. I've kind of, for better or worse, I've fallen into this kind of de facto role because of visibility, because of the podcast and all the stuff that I do to get people to look at me. That I fall into the de facto role of like when people are new, they want to ask questions, and I'm available and I'll answer those questions. So if you got a question, go ahead and ask me. I'll answer it, unless it's give me free money. Then I'll only give you a little bit. But one of the common things that comes up is about gear. Just like any strength sport, about anything where there's equipment involved, there's gear questions. Like, what's your loadout? What do you use for this? What kind of shoes? And the shoes we're going to get into, that's a big one. But, like, what do you have in a loadout? And my questions, they're all over the map depending on where I was in my career at the time. So... I did a YouTube video 3 years ago. It was called My Games Loadout. And I looked at that, and that's what prompted the looking through all the YouTube stuff here. And I kind of looked at that loadout, and I thought, like, what stuff am I still using from that, and what stuff have I just kind of left by the wayside? I used to be a gearbox person. I know a lot of y'all still are. Like, I have the big, husky job box, like the big boy, on wheels and everything. And that was great, especially when I was traveling Texas. But that's great for when you're traveling locally and you can throw it in your truck, your car, your SUV, whatever, and like you can get to where you're going. But when you're traveling a lot, when there's air travel, it gets to be a real pain in the ass. It's nice that it rolls, and if you travel once in a while, it's okay to take your gearbox. But after a while, I broke down to, like, I have an old bag, a baseball bag for catcher's gear. It's not just like the normal baseball backpack style or like the bat sleeve kind. Like it's for catcher's gear, so it's pretty good sized. I got it from my brother forever ago. He later on in his career, he played independent ball in the Atlantic League, and he played for the Ducks, the Long Island Ducks, who are also a hockey team, I believe, but they're also an independent league. I think that's right. So yeah, I think it still has a Ducks logo on it somewhere. But yeah, I got that from him, and it's a great size in general. I mean, there's no wheels. I got to carry it. I know, right? Got to use all these stupid muscles that I've been trying to get for the past decade or more. God, well more than a decade. I've been trying to get stupid muscles. Whenever I mumble to myself like that, I mean, I apologize. You guys have to witness it, but that really is just me telling myself stuff. They would be going through there anyway, but I feel like there's a microphone in front of me, so I gotta verbalize it. So I was a gearbox person, but then I moved to this bag because I think, as happens with a lot of athletes, as you go further and further and further, and maybe you just hit the wall, or you reach, as I love to say, the end of your talent, you realize like, that gear's not doing me any good. I'm gonna pare down a little bit, and you just get lazy. I'm fond of saying, you call it laziness, I call it efficiency. So you do get more efficient with your loadout too. So I want to go through pretty much all of it, but I'll kind of hit the most common items, like the things that come up the most, and maybe this will help somebody when they're trying to make decisions about, what they're going to put in their gear bag, what they might need, or things they might disagree with me on. And some of this comes down to your personal style as a thrower. Some of it comes down to, the events that you care about or are the best at, or the things that you just don't give a shit about. Like if you're somebody like me, for example, like if you're trying to document it, if you went through a phase, or if you're in a phase where you're trying to do vlogs, you're trying to do Instagram content, you have to think about things like that too. So I'll just kind of go through, no particular order. I'm just going to randomly go through. I got like an old picture. I think it's like the cover picture from that YouTube video, and I'll kind of go through that. Let's just get into the fucking shoes thing already. This is by far one of the most common inquiries about the Highland Games, because there's so many different fucking events. There's 9 different events with like 6 different modalities, I think it is. What is that? Stones, weights, hammers, caber, sheaf, wob. You can put sheaf and wob as one modality, so you can say 5 because they're both height events. But this is one of the most common inquiries is about shoes. There's so many different types of events and types of ways you have to move, and different stresses on the footwear or your feet or the traction you need. And there's different kinds of tracks you're going to be throwing on, meaning different kinds of grass. You're going to be throwing different surfaces, different weather conditions, so on and so on and so on. So this is a super common question, because I think, and it's not that most people that I hear ask it, I don't think they're asking from the perspective of what's going to give me an edge. Like what kind of footwear is going to give me an edge. I think most people, and this is where I was when I was newer, you're coming from a place of, I don't want to look like an asshole because I have the complete wrong thing. You don't want to feel like an idiot. You don't want to feel like an asshole newbie out there because you're wearing the absolute wrong kind of shoe, or you're just doing something that's considered a huge faux pas, or like, why are you wearing those kind of shoes, dork? We're all dorks, by the way. So there's a baseline level of dork. So if you're called a dork by somebody that's also throwing in the Highland Games, you can tell them to get right fucked, because they're also a dork wearing a kilt throwing rocks. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be the person that's wearing the total wrong thing. So I get that. That's where most people are coming from. They just don't want to commit a faux pas and look like an idiot. And that's fine. That's what the internet's for. That's what most content and knowledge on the internet is about, is, oh God, I just don't want to look like an asshole. I just don't want to look like the one asshole out there that doesn't know what he's doing. It's done wonders for me, being able to research on the internet and like bypass the do the wrong thing, take the wrong thing, wear the wrong thing, look like an asshole thing. It's really a wonderful resource that we have. Shoes. Okay, so in my old loadout, I had like a shoe for every season, man. I usually wore the same pair of shoes for my first 4 events, traditional order for stones and for weights. I wore, a lot of guys love a lot of different kinds of shoes for that. Josh Goldthorpe has an older video, probably like 3-4 years old now, but where he goes through some shoe choices. He's a pro from Canada. He's a good thrower, gives a lot of good information. He bends nails now. Josh, I know you do more than that, but that's all I see you do. So he bends nails in funny poses right now, and I think that's it. I think he's trying to go pro doing that too. But Josh has a great video out there that talks about footwear choices. A lot of guys love high jump shoes. A lot of guys love javelin boots. Some people just love a straight up like the Tano 360s. I threw in a track spike, a straight up actual like runner's track spike that had, it did not have spikes on the heels. It had a plastic forefoot where you would screw in the spikes and have to change those out, and then have a fairly soft but not too like pliable or slick heel. it encouraged me to stay on my toes, even though I did not a lot of the time, but it encouraged me to do that. And I felt like it was just enough grip on most of the turf that I would commonly throw in Texas. That, it's very dance floor like here. You can throw in rotational shoes. You can throw in like track and field shoes that you would throw on concrete in a lot of places here because it's that hard. I've done it. And there were times where I knew if I was going to be at a dance floor kind of place or a basketball court that was like, one of these Texas games, or I knew there was maybe going to be some sort of artificial surface, I have a pair of VS Athletics rotational shot put shoes that I would take usually just for stones. That was kind of a waste though, because I'm not good enough at stones for that to fucking matter. So I got to the point where now, like, I'll just use my sneakers. I'm getting ahead of myself though, but most of the time, I use a straight up pair of track spikes. This is a real big personal preference thing. Some people like having a little bit of grip on the post leg. For a right-handed thrower, that'd be your left leg, because when you stomp that thing down to post and to block, having grip on the heel helps because you're trying to flatten that thing out and really get that foot down. And I can see that's extremely helpful. I've never had a great post leg, so it never really became a problem for me. I never posted so hard that I slipped, and if I did, I just slipped and fucked up and like blew the throw. So there you go. So that was the track spikes was for me, but that's a lot of people have a preference there. I understand, but again, there were times where I would take the rotational shoes and I'd take the track spikes along with the general purpose like trail runners I'll talk about later. But I stopped doing that. I just stopped doing that, and you'd be surprised. I'll get to like what my actual loadout is now. But that was the track spikes. So then when we move into hammers, I would have the boot blades. Now for a long time, I made the dumb mistake of, I had like an old pair of football cleats. I think I got it from Spencer and we attached my blades to those just because they were free or whatever. And that was a mistake because there was not enough support in that shoe. They were like high top 3/4 football cleats, but there just wasn't enough support to sit. They were too pliable on the top, and the soles were a little too squishy. So eventually I moved to just a straight up pair of work boots, like the $24, what is it? The natural leather looking work boots that you get from Academy or wherever else, like just the cheapest work boots you can, steel toed work boots, and put the blades in those, put an extra pair of insoles to make it more snug, and I wrap some tape around the forefoot to really create some tightness down there, and I will re-up that once every couple of years, but I haven't been good about it. So there's the boot blades. I use Thoroughbros blades, obviously. I believe that particular style is the best. I know that's a source, and we'll digress there real quick and talk about that part of the gear since this is where we are. I know a lot of people like a flatter, broader blade that comes straight out of the front, and that's the more classic style. I get it; they're easy to kick in, they're great. You can slide them in easy, and it feels like you've got that nice broad blade that's giving you some support. But if you look at the Thoroughbros blades, they're a thinner piece of I think it's like 5/8 bar, and I'm not a real man. I don't work with metal, so I never really know all the measurements. But you can see them, and they kind of got an S curve in them that curves down from your toe, like right at your toe. It goes down about an inch, and then continues back out. And it's got a fairly, I guess you could typify it as a dull point, but you can sharpen it up, and we do fairly regularly as we kick them in. Another thing I haven't done in like 2-3 years, but you're kicking into dirt. You don't need a slicing blade. You don't need like a Ginsu. You don't need like a chef's knife to get in there. You just have to pound in. And honestly, the more you can kind of pound and compact, the better. So, and these are heavier blades. They're not going to bend easily. Like you can't bend these. Like you can stand on them with all your weight, and you're not going to be able to bend these. And if you do, it's an imperfection. That's the plain truth. But you can't do that on these. But it's a little longer. It's thicker, and it's that kind of it's a triangle point. But most of the blade is straight, and then it attaches all the way back onto the sole of your foot. Like it attaches into the ball of your foot, and then towards the arch is where it attaches, but it doesn't go all the way back. So it gives you that ability to kick and really get a good angle. So the key with those is that you kick in, like your first kick can be whatever, like you just get a hole in the ground, but afterwards you need to kick in more flat. That's what everybody doesn't get. People with those sharp blades, they can kind of kick in and then they can settle in because the blade will give and they'll push up a lot of earth with them. With the thinner blade, you have to kick, again, I say thinner, it's only thinner in like the width as you're looking down at it, but the thickness of the blade makes it very rigid, and that's good. So you can kick in, but you got to kick flat, and you got to kick forward, and move your foot, like your toe, into the opening that you made with it. And then as you kick it in there, you're getting like a cumulative like packing in of the dirt, and you're getting deeper slightly instead of going straight down and then like lever. What a lot of people pop out is they get too angled down, and then they sit back on their heels, and it's like a catapult. If you can imagine that, your heel's up in the air, the blade's too steep in the ground, and then when you sit your weight back, you catapult all your weight back, and that causes that dirt to fly up. If you go in nice and flat and you got your heel distributing the weight as well, that's why I like the Throw Bros blade. It makes it easier to do that. So aside there, I know there's lots of people selling lots of great blades out there. That's just my personal preference, and I think that's the reason these are probably the most common blades you see nowadays, because this is the best possible design for those. Pumping my own company up for sure. Yeah, but we do things for a reason, not just because we think they're cool. We do them because we think they're effective at Throwbros. Throwbros.com. So that's the blade situation. Now, moving to caber. I always use trail runners. I had a blue pair of trail runners, a pair of Adidas, just like with the big, healthy, like mud gripper tire kind of trail runner tread. And one thing that I really love is finding something that's got reverse tread on the heel, meaning the tread kind of like points toward the toe portion of the shoe, because that helps you to stop in slippery stuff. It gives you a little bit more of like a stopping force, a little bit more of a braking feel when you're stopping. And that's, when you're stopping in caber, that's what you got to do. You got a lot of extra weight with you, sometimes up to 130 extra pounds you're carrying right at the center of gravity, so stopping is important. So I like the trail runners. I don't like to do anything. I've done it in my track spikes, and it's just too slippery. I've done it in other shoes, it's just too slippery. So the trail runners is a great thing right there. It's a general, like, if I know I got a caber I really got to kind of get up for, which for me is fucking any caber, but that's the shoe that works for me. Now, I used to, for the height events, I had an old pair of Do Win, if you remember those, like the faux suede black lifting shoes. Used those forever till they fell apart. And I used lifting shoes for that. It was great. It's fine. It's all well and good. And then, but the thing is, my real lifting shoes are nice. They're Romaleos, and I like them, and I don't want to fuck them up by taking them out on the road for Highland Games. So after the Do Wins fell apart, I stopped throwing the height events in lifting shoes. And I'm not like world class in either of them. You can make the case as a lightweight, I'm like just world class in sheath, I guess, but not in weight over bar. But it didn't make that much of a difference. Like, I didn't notice, I guess, and here's one of the reasons why, and this will transfer into what my footwear choice is now. I spent several years in CrossFit doing that pretty seriously, and then coaching in it. And a lot of my Olympic lifting, while I would do like dedicated heavier Olympic lifting, I would do that in my Romaleos. I would do a lot of Olympic lifting in Metcons or Nanos, Nike Metcons or Reebok Nanos. Later, pretty exclusively Nanos, just because that's a better shoe for general fitness stuff. Better heel, better angle, better toe box, better for rope climbs, all that kind of stuff nobody cares about on this podcast, right? So I moved to those for height events, and that was around the time that I started realizing like the general grip profile of those shoes, while it's not aggressive, it's effective. It's a well-researched shoe. And the Nano is kind of the same way. It's a good grip profile on it. And I eventually got to the point where I use those for stones. I use them for weights. And depending on the turf, I could use them for caber. Or if I didn't have too aggressive of a caber I had to deal with, or like it was just nice dry ground or good grip, I could use those for almost everything. And then, so basically there are a lot of games, and there still will be some, especially when it's like, more casual, like travel to games or something like that, or drive to games or something like that. I'll take the Nike, what am I trying to say? The Nike Metcons, I'll take those and my blades. And that's it. And then in Texas, using the blades isn't always a guarantee. Sometimes you're just not going to be able to kick in, so you got to throw that blades. And hey, I can use the Metcons for that. Same pair of shoes all day. Boom. So I've noticed that same trend. Shoes used to take up a ton of space in my bag, because it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, counting the slides, because you always take a pair of slides to wear before and after. because those are cool. That could take up a lot of room in your bag. And especially if you're flying and traveling, it could end up where you have to have a different bag, a different suitcase for that. That's a pain, man. And I think I've seen other athletes as they progress, they realize that the differences you're getting are so minimal and so random sometimes based on the conditions that it's not worth all the extra effort. Because at the end of the day, it is a fun festival sport and we're an entertainment product. So there's not millions of dollars at stake where you getting the right, it's not like a shortstop changing gloves is a big deal, or he's got sponsorship dollars on the line, or he has to use Rawlings or whatever. It's not like that. So I think like anything else, as you progress, improve, however you want to put it, the selection of your shoes goes down. So a standard loadout for me now, and this may change, is I take something like the Nike Metcons. I'm due for a new pair of those. I've worn those out. I like squeak when I walk now. It's weird. There's those. I will take the track spikes, because they're light and they're small. And if I have tough conditions, I need to get some grip in, I'll wear those. And I take the hammer blades. Unless I know I'm going somewhere where I've got soft ground, where I need better braking, I won't take the trail runners anymore. I won't. I'll just take the Metcons to do that kind of stuff. Because, I'm not a high caber performer. And there's not it doesn't make that big of a difference for me. If I can't handle a caber, it's not the shoes that made it so I couldn't get it turned. That's why. So, yeah, I could go as little as blades, nanos, slides. That could be as little as I do. That could be it. But the slides are super important. You gotta look relaxed and chill. And plus, these, no matter what kind of sock you use, shout out to Sport Kilt. I use the Sport Kilt kilt hose. No matter what though, if you're throwing in the heat and you got those long socks, that are cotton, poly blend, all that kind of stuff, or that have spandex and like that, your feet are gonna sweat. So it's good to get some slides out once in a while. Let them puppies breathe. So we'll take a moment to digress because we are talking gear. We are going to talk Sport Kilt. Like I said, I use the Sport Kilt athletic hose. Obviously, I don't use the kilt hose because those are more for traditional endeavors like the pipers, dancers, things like that are looking for the costume and aesthetic part of it. But I do use, they have all different colors in the athletic hose. My mind is blown every time I see somebody like wearing socks, because I used to do it too. Like early on, like wearing like socks from like Academy or Dick's or something like that, or wearing soccer socks or baseball socks and stuff like that, or expensive Under Armour or whatever. Like just Sport Kilt's got it covered, man. They know exactly what we need. The socks are lightweight, they're flexible, and they're the perfect length. You don't have to worry about all that kind of stuff, because some games are going to be strict about that. The big games are going to be strict about having like the right knee length socks, like the right hose length socks. So you got to do that. So they have those. That's all I wear. In addition, I have carried a Sport Kilt to every games I've ever thrown in. That's it. Henderson tartan, the Works kilt with the buckles and the fringe, all my patches on it. That's been what I wear. That has been it. And that's the only that's the only thing you need to carry. That thing has been stuffed into every gearbox, every gear bag, next to every gross thing, worn to every game, had everything spilled on it, and it's still as fresh as a daisy, and I'll wear it until the day that I hang the kilt up. 100%. I'll use Sport Kilt my entire career. So that's a big part of the gear loadout right there. Sportkilt.com. You use code HEAVYLIGHT. You're going to save 10% on all the stuff I mentioned, plus more. Now, here's an item that I used to take. I at first did not take, started to take, and now don't take anymore, is a belt. This one mystifies me a little bit. And you know what? I actually have a note on my phone about this, and I'm going to kill some time here just yammering on while I talk about it, because I want to find this note that I wrote. I wrote like it was going to be part of a blog post or a chapter in a book or whatever, something like that, and then I just kind of never used it. But I never used a belt because I didn't think it was like lifting at all. And then I got told by some people, oh, you use it to brace during height events, or like it's good, if I have back problems or whatever. And so I started doing it. At first I would take my real leather powerlifting belt, my 2-prong powerlifting belt. But then I would move, I would eventually take what was it? I would take the nylon, the Velcro belt. I would take that. And it just never felt natural. Even on height events, it never felt like there was a point where I needed to brace out and really hit that point. And if it's so momentary when you have to brace that I never felt it. So I stopped doing it, and I don't do it anymore. And I don't have the greatest back in the world. It's hurting as I sit here. Trust me. I'm 40 as fuck, but it's not something that I felt like alleviate any problems with throwing. So I'm going to just kind of skim through this. So what I wrote here? What is the purpose of a belt during lifting? To push out against, to create stability, right? In almost every throwing event, that is the opposite of what we want. You need unbraced fluidity to gain separation and allow your hips to get in the correct position in relation to your torso and shoulder girdle. The X position, as it's called. The Pekoskis use that a lot, and that's kind of become part of the parlance of Highland Games throwing. What we are fighting against is that the muscles of the trunk are quite well built to resist rotation, not especially create lots of it. After we get in that position, now we have to unleash that torque into a throw. It's the correctly coordinated contraction of rotational muscles like external obliques, and not just the rigid stability of muscles like the rectus abdominis, your abs basically, that create the trunk rotation needed. The contraction of the rectus abdominis or crunching muscles stabilizing the diaphragm are just steps along a fluid path of contraction that lead to release. A belt is an aid to resist tilt and rotation throughout the trunk. Why would we want that in movements that are meant to create and harness torque? You can't even properly brace in a belt when moving through most throws, so its presence can only really be chalked up to psychological reasons. Put a big spotlight on that sentence. Can only be chalked up to psychological reasons. If your back hurts from throwing, the belt isn't a stopgap. Investigate the rest of your training or recover your injuries first. So that was like a big part of my realization of like not using a belt when throwing. And I still see a lot of people do it. And look, I'm also at this point where I'm not like the guy I was when I wrote that, where I'm like judgy about people doing shit that I think is wrong. If you're more comfortable throwing in a belt, fucking throw in a belt, because your psychological comfort is just as important, if not more so, than the gear that you're wearing. If you feel more psychologically stable or secure, or like you're less likely to hurt yourself, or you're going to be more stable or be able to hit positions better, then do that. Because it doesn't cost me anything for you to do that. But I'm saying for me personally, it does not do anything. And I don't believe that this is the kind of sport. You can make a case, caber, sheaf, and wob. Maybe there's a little bit of point to pushing out against that belt and stabilizing in that way. But it's so momentary. And the thing I go back to is not a lot of the people that are the best in the world wear a belt when they're doing this stuff. These are big boys too. They're not little guys like me. You know, it's not as common at the top level. So take that for what it's worth. But if you want to wear a belt, wear one. It's just not part of my loadout. And it takes up room in the bag, man. That's become like the premium for me. That's the biggest thing. That's the premium. Same thing, supportive gear. So this is totally conditional. Knee sleeves. I won't wear a heavy knee sleeve because why? This is one where I will judge you. If you're wearing a heavy knee sleeve, why? Now, when I say heavy knee sleeve, I'm talking about like those old Elite FTS, like the double X thick ones, whatever, or like the slingshot strong sleeves. That's a heavier sleeve. You're only getting something out of those as you hit parallel and below, and then they spring back to shape. You're not getting anything in the positions we get into throwing. If you're going to a full squat at any point in the throw, you got bigger problems than what knee sleeve you're choosing, homie. So I choose, if I have some knee instability, and I have in the past, I've had weird meniscus problems, I've had lockups and all that kind of stuff. I will take something like a reband. Reband is fantastic. What are they, like 7 millimeters, something like that? Yeah. And then later on, as I, got to be friends with people from Slingshot and things like that, I was able to, get with their sleeves, like the black and white, like the thicker ones that are kind of the reband copies. And those are great. That's still what I wear to this day. If I have any knee instability, I have not had, knock on any kind of wood available, I have not had any knee problems in a long time. My knee's been very healthy. CrossFit helped a lot with that and getting me kind of corrected in terms of my movement patterns and all that kind of good stuff. So I haven't had a lot of problems with that. But if I do pack them, it's because I'm currently having knee problems. I think a lot of people just wear them as like a just in case. And if it's colder weather, I'm with you, man. Keep that joint warm. But otherwise, if you got healthy knees and it's nice warm weather, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But it's another one of those. If you feel better doing it, do it. Because it doesn't really cost you anything in terms of able to hit positions or whatever. Just, again, room in the bag. Continuing supportive gear, wrist wraps. I've run the gamut on these, man, but I have really settled. Again, I know I sound like a homer for my company here, but the Throw Bros Tosser wrap, which we ran last year, which I hope we would run again. I'd like to get that done, get another batch out. I just haven't had that front of mind, especially with there not being like a real season now. But I love it. I love the Tosser wrap. I love the Throw Bros Tosser wrap because I designed it for all the stuff that I think people throwing in the Highland Games need. We can, unlike in track and field, shot put, we can wear a wrist wrap that's not just tape. They can only tape the wrist. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. And you can only tape below the last joint of the thumb. And so I designed this wrist wrap to be pliable. Like I want it to be, it's basically made of a stretch canvas. It's not super thick. It's not like a powerlifting wrap. And this is one of my big points with this, is that we, as a sport, generally use stuff that's made for other sports because we're such a small niche. And that was a lot of the impetus behind creating Throw Bros, was let's have somebody make stuff for us, by us, as we like to say. It's the Highland Games FUBU model. We wanted to make something that met the demands of not only just like throwing in competition, but like throwing in practice. So a big, heavy powerlifting rep, I would just notice like I would have to undo it every throw. And if I was practicing, it would get uncomfortable because it's meant to do that. It's meant to keep things compressed. It's meant to compress that joint really tightly, not just support it. It's meant to compress everything together in there. So it creates almost like a super artificial stability, because that's meant for benching big weights. You want to keep those bones stacked. You want to keep those knuckles on top. You want to keep, the bones of the hand stacked up on top of the radius and ulna. You want that. And it's, what we're asking it to do in a throwing situation is we're trying to get a stone out away from where the bones are stacked. And we're trying to get it into the outer palm of our hand, or we're trying to get it out on our first knuckle even. And then we're trying to create a spring. And it's somewhat effective at doing that, but it's not what it's made for. It's not made for that kind of stability. So it gets uncomfortable. I think it makes it a little harder to nest stones in sometimes if you already have mobility issues. So that was why I designed the tosser wrap to be a more forgiving, flexible canvas that you can still crank down though, because I think that's important to be able to crank it down and get some stability. I didn't like the regular cloth wraps that weightlifters use. I have a pair of the hook grip ones, which are great for lifting, but I did not like those for throwing because I wanted a little bit more pliability, a little bit more shaping and flexibility around it. So that was a big reason for that. It was we did a little shorter than those weightlifting wraps because again, it's a pain to get those on or off, and you don't need the same kind of total static stability you need out of like a weightlifting or a powerlifting wrap. The other thing it has, which it was a big thing for me I wanted to get done, it's instead of having a thumb loop, have you noticed how annoying it is to have a thumb loop around your thumb when you're trying to throw? Like it just pulls your thumb into your palm or out of your palm, depending on how you do it. So it has a grab loop where you grab it with your pinky, like you fold your pinkies or your ring finger down onto the heel of your hand, hold the loop, and then tighten it like that. And then you can, after you secure it, you let the loop go and you tuck it into the wrap. So that's a forever carry for me. That's something I'll always have. I highly recommend it. Don't have them in stock at Throw Bros right now, but hopefully we'll get on that soon now that I'm thinking about it actively. So that's pretty much it in supportive gear. Fork. Fork is a big deal. So 3-tine fork forever. 3-tine fork's available at throwbros.com. That is something that we will not carry a 2-tine. The demand is not there, and it's an inferior kind of fork. Sorry. It is. It's nobody that throws a real high sheaf is throwing with a 2-tine. And if they are, it's an exception. It's a super exception. And you're not it. You're not that exception. They're just, it legitimately is like less tines to put energy from you to the fork into the bag. And it doesn't work the same. 2-tines are cute and all, but a lot of places don't even allow them. So just throw a 3-tine fork. Let's get rid of the 2-tine revolution. And I've also talked about my hatred of tiny forks in the past. Take a full length handle. I know it's a pain to travel with sometimes, but it's not like it's that much. It's not like it's that much less of a pain to be like, oh, you don't have to pay for the extra bag because you cut 12 inches off the end of your fork. You still got to pay for the extra thing as a bag, so fuck it. But yeah, tiny forks, you have to have enough room to get to the proper grip, and most people that have tiny forks end up doing it too narrow, and they have their hands just outside a clean grip to do it, and it's bad for their particular dimensions no matter what they do. And honestly, people are like, well, it's so much extra weight. Why would you have all the extra weight on the end? It's like 4 ounces of wood on the end of it. But what it does is it stabilizes. You have a lot more weight on the bag side. And why not have just a little bit extra to counterbalance and have it wider and give yourself options if you got to change grips or something like that? And why do all the work of cutting a handle off? Because one day you might change your grip and then, oh, okay, well, I have to get a new handle now. And putting a new handle on a pitchfork is a fucking pain in the ass if you haven't done it before. I know. I do it in my workshop, and I got a ball peen hammer. I know you can do it, but it sucks. I'd rather not do it. And I've only had to change a handle once in 10 years of throwing. So there. Suck it, tiny fork throwers. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to war again over tiny forks. Fuck your tiny forks. I got so angry. I think I gave myself the coughs. All right, other tiny loadout stuff. Tacky, obviously, throw bros, toss and sauce. That's it. There you go. That's the tacky right there. Before we created toss and sauce specifically for throwers, I used the 3M spray tack. I never used other tacky. Like it always felt too sticky and too like strongman stuff to me. And so I used a spray tack. And once I started using toss and sauce, it was kind of tailor-made, and my hammers got better from that. So that's all I ever use. And it's funny because you think I own the company. I'll always have it with me. I don't. Like 99% of the time I go to games, I don't have a tube of my own tacky and I have to borrow someone else's. But that is what I will use. And hashtag blessed, right? That so many people out there have my product. So love you guys. That's awesome. And thanks for letting me borrow it when I go out there because I'd never have my own product. I give it away or I lose it. Then tape. So I take Kramer black athletic tape. It's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes the white is like not sticky. Sometimes the black is really hard to tear. It's just, I don't know. They're all different batches that come from different times and places in somewhere in East Asia. So you take your chances. But black Kramer athletic tape. I do the, what is it? Is there 1.5 inches? I do the thicker one because I like to be able to rip it to do finger rings if I need to. Chalk. I throw bros steroids chalk. Always. The container is the game changer. Again, we did things with throwers in mind. I did things because I thought they would be convenient as a thrower and Aaron thought they would be convenient as a thrower. So like, hey, it'd be cool if this, instead of it being like a Ziploc bag with a block of chalk in it or a fucking Tupperware container, it'd be cool if I could just control the amount I got out and shake it out like seasoning. Like, oh yeah, seasoning. So we basically put it in like a seasoning container. So throw bros, steroids, chalk, always and forever. Towel. I'll bring one towel. In general, I don't bring any kind of tacky remover, but that may be getting worked on in the Secret Throw Bros laboratory right now. The Secret Throw Bros laboratory is mine, Aaron's garages. But so that may be something that's coming in the future, just heads up. But I don't really carry tacky remover. I generally just like hope that somebody else has something, or I just have sticky hands the rest of the day. But I'll carry a towel with me. Towel's a good and universal thing. Always carry some kind of backup sunscreen. We'll put on cream sunscreen in the beginning of the day because I'll have time to like get the oil and the slipperiness off my hands. But for sunscreen updates, I'll carry spray with me. And I'll breathe in those sweet cancer-causing vapors all day. But to update, I just don't want to get my hands slick in the middle of the day. Like it fucking matters. Terrible. But I don't want that to, again, that's more of a mental thing. Sunscreen, I can wipe it off. It's just fine, or wash it off. But it's a mental thing. So there you go. I'm crazy just like you motherfuckers. I've talked about socks already. Throw Bros best, Sport Kit makes the best socks. So camera stuff. So back when I was a vlogger, I used to carry the fucking, the Nikon D3300, the digital camera with the directional mic. I had the Joby Gorilla Pod, the thing onto it that I could shape and clasp onto stuff. And that was a big deal. Extra batteries, whole kit. I would have all that shit in there. Extra batteries, extra memory cards, all that kind of good stuff. Full tripod along with it if I want to do bigger stable shots. So that was a big part of it. That's not so much the case anymore because honest to God, phones have gotten to the point now where I can get the video content that I want on my phone. Then it's better a lot of times than that D3300 was. The D3300 is still a great camera body for photography. It's just really hard to do your own still photography when you're throwing. So that's not something that I really take with me anymore. I'd like to get a better directional mic for the phone. We'll work on something like that. But I mean, I use a Google Pixel 4 now. That is, I love the camera on this thing. It looks fantastic. And I actually use a small one. I don't use the XL anymore. I like the smaller size of this one. But I may go back to the Gigantor phone at some point. That's pretty much the long and short of it right there, man. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I take now that I never took before. I'll take sometimes I'll take extra shirts. I know if I'm going to sweat through them or whatever, but a lot of times you get a game shirt, you just put back on the shirt you had at the beginning of the day. Cold weather, I'll take a pair of joggers and I'll start off with a pair of joggers and a hoodie and a hat or whatever. That's pretty common. You guys can figure that stuff out. I mean, nowadays, if there's already games coming up in the future, I'm going to be taking a mask. I'm taking a mask from Sport Kit. They make awesome masks. I don't know why I'd buy anything else. It's certainly on brand for what I'm doing at the Highland Games. I don't know. Do you guys take anything weird? I don't know. Reach out to me. Let me know. shoot me a message on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. And let me know, do you guys take anything weird with you out there? I'm trying to think if there's anything weird I've ever taken. I mean, snacks, that's like a whole nother, as we say in Texas, that's a whole nother episode. But, your games day nutrition, and maybe I'll cover that. I do cover that in my seminars. Whenever, I go out and do a seminar at games, there's the lecture portion and the hands-on portion. In the lecture portion, we do talk about games day nutrition. I have gotten in the habit when the games really matter to me, like a Nationals or a Worlds or the big games or something like that, I will take a cooler with me. That's something that Aaron finally beat into my head, to take my own nutrition. Don't count on what's at the field. Don't count on what's at the festival. Just take my own nutrition, get myself through the day feeling good, keep my blood sugar where it needs to be, give myself some energy to work with. So the cooler is another thing, and I'll usually take some sort of giant water bottle with me. But I don't pack a bunch of pre-workouts. Pre-workouts are kind of dumb for a sport where you're doing it all day. So, yeah, Monster energy drinks do what you need them to do. If you drink one throughout the day, works for me. It's just fine. But, cooler's a good call. Do that too. And then for devices, I'll carry like an extra lithium-ion battery with me or something, like a battery pack. There's some good ones on Amazon. I got a solar one that I use for hunting and long backpacking that sometimes I'll use, but a lot of times I just use the big old huge black one that the nice one I got off Amazon. I'll have to post a link to that at some point because it's really, really reliable. It's really good. So yeah, that's the loadout, and it all fits in a catcher's bag. All fits in a catcher's gear bag. And I love that because I can strap that over shoulder, carry it to the airport. It's one check bag, I'm done. And hey, now if I travel to a games and it's not a games that I care a great deal about, I don't even take my fork anymore, man. Because, again, good chance there's going to be a Throw Bros fork there, or a 3-tine fork, or an Irvin fork that I can use, and that'll be fine. I can throw with those just fine. I'm not so good that those minor changes in the rake or the bend or the splay of the fork makes a big difference to me. So, yeah, that's the loadout. But yeah, like I said, reach out to me. Let me know if you guys take anything weird. I mean, do you guys have any lucky charms you take out there? Do you take like a rabbit's dick in your bag? Heavy Light is brought to you by Throw Bros. Throw Bros is the only online store for Highland Games athletes. Gear up, get throwing. Use code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You're going to save 10% at throwbros.com.